What's going on, everybody? Samuel Akem here, and I'm back with another one. My voice is getting better. It's almost back to 100%, but I want to thank you guys for tapping into yet another Akem'S analysis. I got an amazing show for you today. Particularly, most of the show is going to be me chatting with Zach Mckinnell of FCS Football Central, or on YouTube, they're FCS Blue Bloods on YouTube. He covers the FCS, the entire FCS. They do a really good job. I was really happy to talk with Zach. I'm hoping I can have him on the channel more. But we discussed the Nio Iamaleava situation. We discussed what's going on in FCS football. We discussed what's going on with FCS Football Central. We discussed all that's going on in college football right now. But that's going to come after we react. I give my thoughts on the Montana Spring Game. I was in attendance at the Montana Spring Game, and I want to give my thoughts about it. I also saw an interesting tweet that put up the RAS of Kupp when he was coming out of college. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit before we get into the Zach Mckinnell conversation. But if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. If you guys are continuing followers, continue to like the videos, continue to leave me comments down below. But we will get straight into it. Okay, the Montana Spring Game. I was there. I got the numerical roster in front of me because some of these guys I didn't even know. There was actually some guys that a lot of the media people there hadn't even seen before, but particularly Mr. Dawson Johnson. He's a linebacker out of White Rock, BC. He's a sophomore. He's 6'1", 225 pounds. I think it was that guy who got the interception. I think it was that kid who got the interception. But somebody got an interception. I remember Coulter and Sean and all the guys talking about, we don't even know who this guy is. He's not even on the Montana roster. But it was a good spring game. I feel weird about giving broad thoughts about the spring game and broad thoughts about what I think this team is going to be, because the spring game, especially the way Coach Houck does it, the starters aren't going to play a ton. You're going to mostly get a lot of the young guys, a lot of reps. But for me, I personally think the receivers had a pretty good day. Guernsey is somebody who showed up for me quite a bit. Cameron Guernsey, he's a redshirt sophomore now. I thought he flashed quite a bit. He had some good plays, but the person who really won the day for me was Brooks Davis. And the reason I also want to point that out is because I specifically remember I went to a practice, the first practice of fall camp this past season, and I saw Brooks Davis. I just saw him going through drills, and I thought that he was going to be a pretty good player for the Grizz. And it turns out that I may be on the right track, because I was talking to some of the vets at the spring game as well, some of the guys who might have just graduated, and I'm hearing good things. I'm hearing good things about this kid. They say he has the right mentality. They say he has the right work ethic. They say he seems like the type of guy that could be a player for Montana. So my hunch was right when I went to camp, and I feel good about that. So I was really excited to see Brooks Davis. He had a really long touchdown. Like I said, I thought the receivers had the best day. I thought Ramos, I'm blanking on his first name, Jared Ramos flashed a couple of times. I think he had 2 tackles for loss. They're not exactly taking stats for the spring game, but I know for sure Jared Ramos had 1 tackle for loss. I think it was 2, but he was somebody who also I think had a pretty good day. The line, I feel weird about speaking about the offensive line because I'm basing my thoughts on one play I saw. I think for the most part, the quarterbacks were clean. Also, you're not going to put hands on the quarterback if you get to him anyway. It's a spring game. But I thought the offensive line play looked pretty good. But there was one play I saw of the offensive line where they got pancaked. It was a pretty bad looking play. I don't think it got a sack. It was like the lineman got pancaked, but the ball was really... the quarterback was really like a little bit shifted to the right of the offensive line, but that wasn't a good look for me. But I think the offensive line did pretty decent for the most part. Another announcement that I want to announce on here, obviously, if you're on social media, if you're on Twitter, you probably already seen it. Cade Klimzak, the center from last year, he came from either Western Michigan or Central Michigan. I think it was Central Michigan, but he is returning for another season. The NCAA, he'll return. He received a waiver from the NCAA and will return for one more ride in 2025. That was what they posted on Twitter. That's what I think it was the Montana Football Twitter that posted that. But exciting news for Montana from that standpoint. I don't know what you think about him as a player, whether he did good last year or whether he didn't do good last year, but I do think that is a good sign for Montana. One of the biggest things that I think leads to success on the offensive line is continuity, and bringing a player back who's already got a year of starting, a year of reps underneath his belt is never a bad thing. So I'm really, really excited to see what Cade Klimzak is able to do this next year for the University of Montana. Hopefully he's able to add to that offensive line, and hopefully they're able to do good things this year. But the spring game was good. Kali'ia'aat did end up playing. Obviously, people want to hear about the quarterbacks. Really, the quarterback, I think that really, and it was so interesting because I would see a good throw, and then you look back at the quarterback to see who's the quarterback that made the throw. And a lot of times the quarterback I kept looking back at was Luke Flowers, number 17, the redshirt freshman quarterback, 6'1", 187 pounds, out of Rigby, Idaho. So I'm guessing this is his second year with the Grizz. Obviously, last year I was keyed in on Cade Hewitt, Ayat, and then the other quarterback who left, Fife, Logan Fife. So those were some of the quarterbacks that I was looking at last year. Luke Flowers totally went under the radar for me. Jake Jensen, he didn't really flash for me. I don't think he played bad. None of the quarterbacks played bad. None of the quarterbacks played great. I don't even say Luke Flowers played great, but I thought Luke Flowers played well. I thought he showed some things. I thought he was operating the offense well. I thought he was completing some passes. I think the long touchdown pass that was to Brooks Davis was actually from Luke Flowers. So from that standpoint, I would say Luke Flowers really had the best day in my eyes. But, I don't think any quarterback necessarily did anything to set themselves apart. I don't know how Luke Flowers has been doing in training camp. I think Ayat looked pretty decent. I'm guessing he's banged up. I guess he's been dealing with a hamstring injury. So a lot of people didn't even think Ayat would play. It was a pleasant surprise to see Ayat play. I thought he played well. There was a few plays where he had to move around in the pocket, still completing passes. But I was pretty impressed with what we saw from the Grizz during the spring game. I think it'll come together better during the fall, and I think that's when you really got to make your assumptions about the team or make your predictions about the team is in the fall, because obviously the spring is so spread out. We could see some of these guys transfer away. We could see some more transfers in. But I think it was a good spring game. I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm forgetting. Receivers played well. I know I'm not talking about everybody in every position. The linebackers, I think, played well. I think one position that I think, so it's kind of dual-edged because I'm talking good about the receivers, but if the receivers had a good day, who do you think didn't have a good day? The defensive backs. And, I wasn't sold on the defensive back play. Now, obviously, it's spring, and obviously this is the spring game where they're beat up. They've had a long spring, but I don't want to make excuses for these guys. We want to see them show up. You want to see the guys show up, and I didn't really see that from anybody from the defensive side, from the defensive back side of things for Montana. I didn't see really anybody flash. Obviously, Brooks Davis had a long touchdown. That long touchdown, I believe, was on Prince Ford. So not a good look from Prince Ford and not a good sign for the defensive back play. Also not a good sign when you consider the fact that the defensive back play might have been down last year compared to where it's been in previous seasons. They got beat up quite a bit in the air at times. So I think that's definitely a position where when this spring portal window opens, that should definitely be a point of focus for the coaching staff, because I didn't see anything that really wowed me from the defensive backs. The running backs looked good. I think Eli ran the ball pretty well. He obviously had a rushing touchdown, but outside of Eli's one rushing touchdown, there wasn't any runs that really wowed me or anything like that. It was really more so about the passing game for me, where I think the quarterback shined, where I think the offense has shined. And then on the defensive side of things, I think it was the D-line that really impressed me the most. The linebackers played decent. The defensive backs I don't think played super well, but yeah, those are my thoughts about that's my reaction to the Montana spring game. Nobody really who I didn't know of. Ooh, Jordan Dever also, as I'm looking at this right here, Jordan Dever also made a few good plays that really made my ears perk up. So from that standpoint, it was really the people that stood out to me that really, there's never, when I'm watching the game, first off, I'm most likely watching the ball and looking at the quarterback who's behind center, but I'm going to go where the ball goes. So where the ball goes, somebody who shows up on the ball, whether that's a defender making an interception or stripping the ball, or whether that's a running back or receiver making a play on the ball, that's really where my eyes float to. So from that standpoint, Luke Flowers really impressed me. Obviously, it's the spring game, so you may want to take it with a grain of salt. Brooks Davis impressed me. Another thing I want to mention, I feel like people have not been talking about Michael Wortham enough. He is going to bring an incredible aspect to this Montana offense. what he can do in the return game, and they didn't really give him the ball a ton during the spring game. I think he actually had a drop during the spring game, if I'm not mistaken. But I think Michael Wortham, who's an all-league returner, is going to be an awesome player for this Montana team. I think he's going to be an awesome player for this Montana offense. Now, what position do you play him at? Do you play him at running back? Do you play him at receiver? Is he strictly a returner? I don't think if you want to get the most out of him, he's strictly a returner. But then where does he play on the offense? I think that's yet to be determined by them. I think they're still trying to figure that out. But Michael Wortham is a player to watch. He didn't really flash for me, but I thought I just saw his name on here, and I think he's somebody who's going to be a difference maker for the Grizz. Jordan Dever is somebody who showed up for me a little bit. Not Michael Wortham, but Brooks Davis is somebody who showed up for me. Luke Flowers is somebody who showed up for me. Cameron Guernsey is somebody who had a good day for me, and that's obviously offensively. Jared Ramos had a good day for me, but on the defensive side of things, there wasn't anybody that I really noticed or anybody that really flashed for me on the defensive side of things as I look at some of these defensive numbers. So that's really where I stand on the Montana spring game. I think it was a good spring game. I don't think it was great. I think some players flashed. I think there's obviously there's talent on this team, and obviously they have, the whole season in front of them. They can do some good things with the roster that they have, but I definitely do think this spring portal window is going to be very huge for this Montana coaching staff in making this squad look like what it's going to look like for the 2025 season. So you guys let me know down below what you guys thought about the Montana spring game, if you were in attendance or not. What do you guys think about some of the players that you saw out there? Let me know down below, and I will move on. Okay, I want to pull up this graphic that I saw of Efton Chism's RAS score and Cooper Kupp's RAS score. I think when you first look at Efton Chism RAS score, it's not great. It's not a good look. It doesn't look great. Obviously, the 40 time. I mean, when you see all this red and then you see the RAS in yellow, it's just not a good look. But I want people to pump the brakes for a second, because if you look at Eastern Washington's Cooper Kupp, he has actually a lower RAS score than Efton Chism. And I was kind of hesitating to give Efton Chism, obviously you think of Eastern Washington, you think of Cooper Kupp, you think of a receiver who's white, who's not the tallest, but is super productive. I mean, all the billings fits for people to make him the Cooper Kupp comp. But I think more than just him being white, him having the same stature as Cooper Kupp, I think even more than that, and even with the stature, Efton Chism's 3 inches shorter than Cooper Kupp. Kupp's 6'1", Efton Chism's 5'11", 5'10". So even from that standpoint. But when you look at the numbers, 4.62 40 from Cooper Kupp, a 4.71 from Efton Chism. 2.69 on the 20-yard split, a 2.72 on the 20-yard split for Efton Chism. 1.62 on the 10-yard split, 1.62 on the 10-yard split for Efton Chism. I think that's the biggest thing about these 40s is the 10-yard split, because I think these guys are the best in short area quickness. 1.62, 1.62. I mean, but also look at the grade that got. So this either means that the RAS metric has shifted over the years, or I don't know, because it's 3.95 here and it's 3.53 here. So little discrepancy there. But you look at the shuttle for Efton Chism, 4.06. You look at the shuttle for Cooper Kupp, 4.08. You look at the shuttle or the 3-cone for Efton Chism, 6.77. You look at the 3-cone for Cooper Kupp, 6.75. So, I mean, the height, the weight is what it is. Cooper Kupp's a little heavier, a little taller. Bench reps, Cooper Kupp must not have benched. The vertical, 31-inch vertical for Cooper Kupp, 34.5-inch vertical for Efton Chism. 910 on the broad for Efton Chism, and then you got a 908 broad for Cooper Kupp. So, I mean, these numbers are so similar. Look at the arm length, 31.5, 30.5. So an inch shorter arm length for Efton Chism. Hand size is 9 inches. Hand size is 9.5. So, I mean, the reason I bring this up is because I think the Cooper Kupp Efton Chism comp is a little closer than we think. Based on the metrics, based on Efton Chism's last couple years of production, I think the comp for Efton Chism and Cooper Kupp is way closer than anybody wants it to be. But, I don't know. I mean, also, another reason why I wanted to put this on here is because I think it validates Efton Chism and what he did in college. Because I think this is how I started this also. So let me go back to how I started this. I think when you look at Efton Chism numbers, they kind of pop out to you, and it can seem like, ooh, when you see that 4.71, it's like, ooh, he ran a 4.71. I think that pushes people away. But when I think you turn on the film, when I think you see what he did at his time in Eastern Washington, that shines over everything else. I mean, that should rule the decision. What does his film say? What did he do when he had the opportunity to do so? He balled out. I think the comp is very close, man. Now, does what did Cooper go in the third round? I don't know if Efton Chism's getting picked in the third round. I mean, Cooper Kupp had 4 straight seasons over 1,000 yards. Jerry Rice Award winner. I think he also won a Walter Payton. Carried his team, not carried his team. They had a lot of good pieces, but took his team to the playoffs multiple years. He was just a super productive player. Once you look at his career, it was like, okay, this guy is productive. He is a player that we need to look at, and he's a player who probably should go pretty early, third, fourth, fifth round in the draft. Efton Chism, I think, is still a UDFA or seventh round guy, but I don't think the numbers should make you shy away from giving Efton Chism some consideration. I don't think the scouts should turn away because, like I've said, and I will continue to say, if you expected Efton Chism to be a burner, you weren't watching the film anyway. He's not a burner. He's a guy who's got really good short area quickness. He's good in zone. He's good run after catch. I mean, just get the ball in his hands. Let him do the rest. You're going to get him on those jet sweeps. Maybe not a jet sweep. You're going to get him on those pre-snap motions, trying to get the advantageous matchups against linebackers, safeties, linebackers and safeties. I mean, that is where he's going to start. He's going to start in the slot. He's going to start in the whip routes, the slants, the return routes, the zipper routes. I mean, all the short area quickness routes that you can think of, that's what Efton Chism does well. Not that he can't run the deep stuff too, but he's not a guy that's going to take the top off the defense. That is not his game. So if you were going into an evaluation on Efton Chism and wondering or thinking, how fast is this guy going to run? Or if this guy doesn't run a 4.7, we're not even giving this guy consideration. You were behind the 8 ball in your evaluation already. So Cooper Kupp, Efton Chism, the comp is closer than you think it is. I'm not calling Efton Chism Cooper Kupp, and I'm not calling Cooper Kupp Efton Chism. But I'm just saying, all I'm saying is all I'm saying. The comp is much closer than people want to give credit for. And, I think somebody who drafts Efton Chism, I think somebody who picks up Efton Chism is going to get a pretty good player, a really good player. And I think he's going to shock a lot of people. So you guys let me know what you guys think about these comps, about these RAS scores. Do they make you think that Efton Chism be Cooper Kupp? Do you guys think it's just a coincidence? Or what do you guys think? You guys let me know in the comments down below, and I will move on. Yo, what's going on, everybody? I'm back. Thank you guys for tuning in to Akem'S Analysis. I am joined by a very special guest, Mr. Zach Mckinnell of FCS Football Central, or FCS Blue Bloods on YouTube. Thank you for joining us, man. How you doing?
Man, doing good. I appreciate you having me, man. I know you know this. I've been a big fan of your platform, man. We need more former players in this FCS space, man. So love what you're doing and just appreciate you having me.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you so much, man. I mean, really, kind of an inspiration for me getting into the business was people like you, yourself, Culture Nuanez, obviously here out here in Missoula with Skyline Sports, Sam Herder with Hero Sports. I mean, you guys do such a great job of covering the subdivision, a subdivision that I think plays really, really good ball. People just don't want to tune into it. I mean, it is what it is.
Hey, people are going to watch what they watch. But I mean, I even think this year you saw like moving the game to Monday night when
Yeah.
fans are when fans are able to tune in. They all say the same thing, right? I mean, the FCS National Championship was trending all across social media this year, but man, it's just hard. Like, I think you even know this. It's hard in this age of football with the attention spans, how they are in like our
Yeah.
generation. It's just hard for like, you don't have people out there watching, 8 games a day, man. They watch their favorite team and they're out for the most part.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So grabbing the attention, the eyes is tough, but it's good ball down here, and I'm glad to have good people like you who are covering the subdivision.
No, man, I definitely appreciate it.
So FCS Football Central, for some of my followers and people who tune into my channel who don't know about FCS Football Central, go a little bit into what made you start FCS Football Central, and what do you guys kind of do in terms of FCS football? What is it about?
Yeah, man, it's been a long journey, and I never even really thought I would get here because I was kind of half stepping into sports media when I first started. I was in grad school over at Kansas State, and it was funny. Like when I got there was about the same time Kleiman got there from North Dakota State, so I kind of knew a
Yeah.
little bit. But growing up in Alabama, man, I kind of grew up a Jacksonville State guy. That was my FCS team, and I was just a football like no matter. I mean, I don't care if it was Maction on Tuesday night. I don't care if it was Monday Night Football. I don't care if it was college football. If you gave me football 24/7, especially growing up as a kid, I'd watch it 24/7. I didn't care who the teams were. So like I had my P4 team. I had Jacksonville State, and right about the time that I was kind of growing up getting into football was right about the time Jacksonville State started to get really good, right? That natty run against North Dakota State, things like that. Well, when I got to the media space, I initially when the Blue Bloods started, my co-host was an LSU guy. He really didn't watch FCS football, so I didn't push it. We did a lot of P4 content. When he stepped away, happened to be the same spring that the FCS was playing in the spring. So I was like, man, this is a
Wow.
perfect opportunity for me to shift gears, cover FCS football because that's my lane, and I know I could be really good at it. And it just happened to be that it was also when Prime stepped into Jackson State, so the
Oh
popularity was
yeah.
growing exponentially anyway. And then you also had the fan bases to Montana's, Montana States, North Dakota State, South Dakota States that were also growing along with that. And so, man, and shifting to now, we do a lot of different stuff. We have our YouTube channel with me and my guy, Coach Fred, who's the assistant head coach down at Alcorn State. We're a little bit more HBCU focused on YouTube. And then me and Timothy Rosario do the audio podcast, which is way more just nationally FCS focused. And the website just happened to be, I know you've probably run into this. If you're not affiliated with the website nowadays, you don't get access to anything. Podcasting,
Yeah.
especially at the time when I was just starting, wasn't really viewed as a valid form of media, right?
Yeah.
And man, so I knew we had to. So I started an independent website, and it just happened to be that SI came along, found us. They needed an FCS dedicated site because the national coverage of FCS is horrible for the most part. So anytime they can find someone, like BetMGM found Hero and
Yep.
Stats Perform paired with Stats Perform paired with Craig and those guys. Well,
Yep.
SI found us and they were like, man, you guys are doing a great job. So now it's myself, Timothy, and Gerald, who's national scout for the Shrine Bowl, GM over at Morgan State. He does all our scouting reports, things like that. And so for me, our goal at FCS Football Central is just to give FCS schools the coverage that P4 schools have. I have a background in P4 media. Gerald's been around it. Timothy has as well. And we know what it takes to, at the end of the day, we got to put in more work as FCS media because talking to coaches, talking to players, even yourself, right? Even if you look at the FCS media coverage 5 years ago, man, it's not what it is even today. And we have
Yep.
so many more outlets. And so I just think it's important for people like myself and the guys I work with, man, to bring FCS players, coaches, and schools and the fans the same level of coverage that they would get if their school was in the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, whatever it may be.
So, how do you kind of battle with that? Because that's something I start to realize when I got into FCS media coverage is like the lack of information. How do you deal with that, and how is that something that you guys are able to battle through in trying to put out accurate information on players, teams, and things of that nature?
The biggest thing is I think making connections, right? So having connections with the coaches, having connections with certain players, assistants, SIDs as well, man. SIDs, we have to lean on them a lot.
Oh
And
yeah.
also too, the biggest thing is, man, just making sure you try, like, because obviously in this age of social media, I think we get lucky that we have access to so much information, but at the same time being available and being around and willing to, if there's a big change at, I mean, just throw a school out there, like Southeastern Louisiana. I have to be present enough and know who to follow on social media where I got my thumb on that. That way, when me and Timothy go record an episode, we're not talking about a quarterback who hit the portal 2 weeks ago, right? And it's so hard
Yeah.
to keep up with. But I think it's just the resources, man. You have to build out your network. And man, if you go through my phone and go through my social media, there's assistant coaches, there's players, there's head coaches, there's SIDs, and it's up to those guys to help keep the media informed. And I think once they kind of recognize you as a valid media source, they're okay with giving you information because they know you're not going to use it in a malicious way or break stuff
Yeah.
before it needs to be broken. And you just have to lean on the resources you have at this level because that's how it's done at the P4 level, right? All these inside sources, they know players, coaches, assistant coaches, agents, which that's not really a thing at our level for the most
Yeah.
part. There's a few guys with agents, but it's not, I don't need to go talk to the agent to get to know what Land Larison's doing, right? I can just reach out
Yeah.
to Land Larison.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the biggest thing, man, just networking, right? And being present. I think the one thing that kind of surprised me, to be honest with you, not to be too long on this question, when I first got in the space, I made a effort to go to my second year to as many media days as I could. I went to
Mm-hmm.
9, I think, of the 13
Dang.
conferences. And,
Wow.
obviously the Big Sky, the Valley didn't have one. Big Sky was in Washington. I'm in Alabama. It was just too expensive to go. But man, in one swooping drive trip, I drove to Southland Conference in Lake Charles. That was on like a Thursday. I drove overnight from Lake Charles, Louisiana, all the way to Birmingham for SWAC Media Day. drove from Birmingham to Charlotte, where Big South Media Day was. The
Yes,
next
sir.
day, drove from Charlotte to Asheville for SoCon.
So
Went to the CAA virtually because they were hosting it virtually. Same with
yeah.
I think it was the OVC did it virtually that year. So
Yeah.
I went to those. Ivy League was virtually, and then I drove from North Carolina to Norfolk, Virginia for MEAC Media Day as well. And
Man.
so, but the thing is there's only a few national media here. How can Craig, me, Sam, Kevin, Marshall, like,
Yeah.
obviously Skyline, they're going to go cover the Big Sky schools. They're not, y'all
Yeah.
aren't covering Big South Media Day,
We're
Southland
just so
Media Day.
far. We're just so
Yeah, and
far.
so it's expensive, and so I was really surprised that there weren't more national media presence at some of these media days, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest steps for networking, because I think that was the biggest response I got from head coaches, players, and also the conference media contacts, is they were impressed that I was even there, and I think it kind
Yeah.
of surprised me, because I just thought everyone went to those, because at the P4 level, everyone just
Yeah.
goes to the media day. And so I think that's the biggest thing of building your network, is being present at games, media days, and any type of media event, especially the national championship. Man, if you get to go to Frisco, my God, man, it's so easy to network because everybody's there.
Yeah. So what needs to happen? I hear you continue to talk about the lack of national media coverage. It's kind of a two-part question. Who is the national media, and how do you get national media interest in FCS football?
Oh God. I guess the national media that's here that cover it naturally. I mean, you obviously Craig's like the kind of the godfather of this thing, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
you have him and what he's done with Stats Perform. Sam has been in it his whole life,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of with Sam, right? Because me and Sam might have not done it as long as Craig or even Kevin, right? Kevin's one of the guys that has been around forever. But
Yeah.
I think Sam's in his early 30s. I'm in my late 20s. So it's like, how long could we have really done it? We're still at the beginning of our media careers. But I think the biggest thing is, one, we have to do a better job of promoting the subdivision, and part of that does fall on the schools, right? Because there are a
Yeah.
lot of schools that are not doing what they need to do in terms of media coverage, promoting their brands, things like that. And then also too, there's like this weird thing where every time a team leaves, it becomes an opportunity to like slander the FCS, like the FCS is the problem
Yeah.
here rather than the NCAA being the problem.
Sac State.
It, yeah, Sac State being one example of that. But at the same time, too, for the big national media brands, man, I just don't know if I just think there's so much going on at the P4 level, where I think you're even seeing, I'll say this, Sam, I think we're ahead in terms of national media coverage in the FCS than the G5 is. And it's going to be when that
Mm.
split ultimately happens. Because I'll say this, let's just say, because James Madison's kind of unique, right? Because they have a really
Yep.
good local beat. That's what helps the Montana schools, right? They have a really good local beat. But
That's where it starts. That's where
yeah,
it
that's where it
starts.
starts. But Sam, let me ask. I mean, who's going to cover Kennesaw State?
They got
Are
so
they
much in
getting
Georgia, it's hard to get to Kennesaw.
exactly? So is Kennesaw State getting more media coverage now than they were at the FCS? There's no chance, because there's nobody like myself, Craig, Sam, Kevin, who's going to talk about Kennesaw,
Yep.
because they just became another G5 program. So I really do think the P4 has all the, ESPNs, the, whoever you
Fox.
want to throw in there, Fox, the Bleacher Reports, the
Yep.
Athlons, the SIs, but
Everybody.
G5 doesn't even barely have local coverage at some places. So I
Yeah.
really do think FCS has done a better job in terms of national media than even the G5 has, because outside of the local beat, there's nobody nationally going to talk about a G5 school unless you're the one G5 school who makes the college football playoff. That's the only team
Yeah.
that gets talked about.
Yep. So, do you envision a day when the G5s and the FCS come together and like, hey, we don't need to be doing this separate. We need to do this together. I mean, because I have been on record saying I think that's what has to happen. Where are you at on that?
I'm with you, and I'm kind of teetering the line, right? Like I got one foot on the side with you, but I also got the one foot on the side with like the Sam Herders, where I do think there could be an argument,
Like
right, that there
three?
should be three subdivisions in Division
Yeah.
One. But I would argue the second subdivision probably, a lot of those programs probably are D1 programs masquerading as D1 programs. Like they're probably
Yeah.
D2 programs that would be way more competitive and financially stable at Division 2 that have just here at Division 1, right?
The
And that's
NEC
the argument.
conference.
NEC, the Pioneer, who a lot of the Pioneer League though are only there to have basketball as D1, and there's
Yeah.
the Dayton rule and all that, because let's just be honest. I mean, if the Ivies finally decided to like really throw some money around, then
Oh yeah.
I think they'd be fine. The NEC, I think some of the lower Southland teams, maybe even some of the lower SWAC
Yeah.
teams, MEAC
Mm-hmm.
teams, Big South OVC potentially.
Yep.
But when you look at the Big Sky, the Missouri Valley, and like let's just take the top 25 right from last year, all those teams could compete pretty well in G5.
Yeah.
That's really the reason I would say no three subdivisions. Part of me would say that is because I think the top of G5 would force their way into P4. Like if there
Yeah.
was a true split, the Tulanes, the App States, like all those programs, they would go just
Yeah.
because
Boise.
the Liberties, they would think they could compete in the college football playoff. But I think I'm with you, man. I think eventually what's going to happen with all the separation, because once you pull the CFP money out of the G5, a lot of those programs are not going to have the financial backing or the TV money to realistically compete. So I think it comes down to whether those P4 programs pull the CFP money out of the G5 conferences. Then I think you could see some sort of merger, because I think if you merge the middle of the pack to lower G5 with the top of the FCS, man, you get what the FCS was in the 90s and the early 2000s when it was
Yep.
at its peak.
Oh yeah. So in a scenario like that, do you envision the respect level of the G5 being diminished? Like, because you know how people speak about the FCS. We saw it just this week. If the G5s merge with the FCS, is it going to become, they play, the second tier D1 football or whatever they're going to say now? Like, is that a situation where they merge and then they're just in the same pot again?
Possibly, but here's the argument I would make with that. And this is something that I don't know how many James Madison listeners or anything you have, which I'm not taking a shot at them. They kind of already are looked at like that.
Yeah.
They kind of are, and I'm not talking about maybe because they're FBS, maybe they get thrown into the same pot, right? And that's
Yeah.
fine. But look at the draft trends that are coming out. G5
Mm-hmm.
players are getting drafted at a lower percentage. Like the drop for G5 programs 5 years ago to now is actually steeper than FCS programs. The FCS
Wow.
average has stayed the same. G5 is plummeting. So the scouts are telling you they don't respect G5 football the same as P4. The
Yep.
TV money doesn't respect you like that. And how many players do we see leave G5 programs to go play P4 to get respect? Like they are already kind of FCS 1 point, whatever you want to say. They're
2.0
FCS
or whatever.
A. Yeah, like they're pretty much FCS already. And you're seeing the divide grow even bigger, and especially now with the house settlement, right? I think you're going to see that divide grow even more. So I'm kind of with you. As much as maybe those programs don't want to be considered a lower level, they kind of already are in the eyes of the
Yeah.
people who really matter.
Yeah, I like that. You're not wrong at all. So you mentioned the house settlement. That's obviously coming down the line. Hopefully to be approved going into this next football season. What are your thoughts on the house settlement, and how do you foresee that playing out this year in the FCS?
Oh man, if I could tell you that, man, I would play the stock market or go gamble, because I couldn't. I don't even know if I have a good answer for you, right? Because
Yeah.
I think it's such a big unknown, Sam, that I just this first year is going to be such a big experiment, because
Oh yeah.
on one side, right, if you're talking P4 level, I think it's a more interesting conversation. But in terms of FCS, I mean, Sam, you played at Montana, right? Who a lot of people would say they're in the top 3 to 4 of resources in the FCS level.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if Montana can afford 105 full scholars if they were
They
allowed.
can't.
And so if Montana can't, what makes you think that Lindenwood and Tennessee State and
Yeah.
UT Martin can go afford 105 full scholars? I really do
Yeah.
think a lot of programs are going to opt in thinking they're going to be left behind, when really and truly they're going to opt in for a year, realize they can't afford it, and then opt out the next year.
Yeah.
I really think that's what's going to happen. And also, too, what rev share are we sharing? All the
Yeah.
programs in the FCS don't have any revenue, so there's no rev
Yeah.
share for these players. And what percentage of NIL are we giving FCS players? Now, I had a conversation with someone. If you include every single player who's getting something, right? I'm talking about $1 from somewhere. There's a lot of players with NIL deals, but if you're talking anything over 5-10 grand, you're talking about like less than 1% of FCS players are
Oh
getting
yeah.
anything near that. And
Yep.
so I don't think the house settlement is going to play a big role in FCS football. I really don't. And I've talked to some coaches just off the record about it. They aren't super concerned about it. And I think that's why you saw like a conference like the CAA say, we're not going to regulate anything. If y'all want to be bold and go get 105 kids, go ahead, try to pay them. And then you saw
Yeah.
other programs like North Dakota State say, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're just going to stay here and go win another natty with our 63 guys because we're
Yeah.
North Dakota State. And I've got to give North Dakota State props. They've kind of been like, if you want to talk about like a thermometer of the FCS, it's North Dakota State, right? Like whatever they do, other programs notice. And I think them opting out of the house settlement has kind of set the mark, like, okay, if North Dakota State can't go offer 105 sky leaves, maybe we shouldn't be jumping out here and just opting into this. And I think you saw the Big Sky take a good approach and say, we'll raise it a little bit, right? I think they said, what, 85? But it's like
No, I think they
63
kept
full.
it. I think they kept it 63. Oh, but you're saying 85 in totality?
Yeah, it's like 85 players with
Yeah.
63 full scholarships.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you can spread those 63 over 85. That's smart, right? It
Mm-hmm.
keeps the competitive balance and allows the programs who really think they can afford it to maybe take a half step, right? Not to
Yeah.
the full 105, but to the 85. I really just think, Sam, I think it's going to be a big experiment for the P4. FCS, I just don't see it altering the landscape as much as people are saying.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. I think it could be I think it could be an advantage for some schools, if they truly do have the money. But I think you pose a good question. Where does that money come from? Because most FCS programs, like with Montana, I think there's only 2 or 3 sports that are even in the green. So when you take that into account, and most FCS schools, barely any of the programs are in the green, if any of them are in the green. So where does that line item, where does that budget come from to, okay, this is the budget that we're allotting for players. And then what does that look like? Like, how much are they getting? 500 a month, 1,000 a month? Like, I think there's so much unknown. And I think it's so hard for the FCS schools to really do that right now. I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough system to mesh into.
I will say this: if there happens to be, like, let's just say, Sam, a team that opts in just goes on a remarkable run and like wins
Oh
the
yeah.
championship or something, everything will change. And I'll come out and say I didn't know what I was talking about, but I just, and also I find it hard to see that 1 year into this, because we still don't even know if the house is going to be fully approved. It's
Yeah.
April 12th and it hasn't been approved. How much time are these teams going to have to take advantage of opting in? Because
Yeah.
you might be able to go get more players, but what's the quality of those players this year? I really do think year 2 is going to be much more impactful because you can opt in, right? And you'll have all calendar year to get your roster ready for
Yeah.
those extra guys. I just don't know if a team like, let's just say Villanova opts completely in. How much
Mm-hmm.
time does Villanova have to, how much time do they have to go find 105 guys who can really contribute and be in the rotation and add that depth? I
Yeah.
don't know.
And then also, how with that opting in, they also have to figure the budget out. So how much time do they have to figure that out, to figure where that revenue is coming from? Also, another thing that I think a lot of people aren't taking into account is, regardless if you opt in or not, your institution as a Division I college is paying back damages. So you
Yep.
don't have to opt in. We are already going to be taking money out of your budget that you weren't maybe planning on. And what do you feel about that? Because I know there's been, at least Worcester still with the Big Sky has been pretty vocal on the fairness of that agreement. What do you think about FCS schools having to pay back damages when in reality, FCS players weren't the ones who were missing out on the NIL money in the first place? It was the P5 players.
I'll say this just to keep it, fair for your show, man. It was BS. I'll keep it sort of clean. I mean, I'm with Tom,
Yeah.
man, and it's unbelievable that the FCS as a whole, if you look percentage wise, is paying more than some of like the SEC and everything. It should have been like they pay like 90%,
Yeah.
and then the FCS and the other subdivisions combined to make up like 10%. I would be
Who was
fine if it
even
was
in
like
the
a smaller.
room negotiating that?
Yeah, well, no, that's the problem though, Sam, is the FCS had no representation in the room when this was proposed. And I think it also goes, and I've had this conversation, this expands to TV deals, this expands to improving the FCS, and this is a whole nother show I guess we could do about this, is I think the lack of communication between athletic directors and conference
Oh
heads
yeah.
in the FCS is killing the FCS. And that's going to be step one to really improving the subdivision. You look at the P4, the SEC talks to the Big Ten, the Big Ten talks to the ACC. All these schools talk to each other, and they've come together to make holistic decisions about the sport.
Yep.
Man, Tim, I would guarantee the Big South commissioner and the Big Sky commissioner do not talk about how to
Yeah.
improve the FCS. Maybe once a year, right, at some random event that they're both at. But there's not active talks between these conferences on how to improve the FCS. There's not athletic directors at some of these bigger schools that are coming together and working to improve the FCS. Now, there might be athletic directors coming together to move to the FBS, which is counterintuitive to improving the subdivision. And I think that's the step one, man. That's why we don't have any representation in the room, is because we're not organized at this level like the P4 is. The P4 is organized. They know the moves that need to be made.
Yep.
And I mean, hey, if I get to make a decision about everybody with no one else in the room, real easy to make that decision if it
Yeah.
benefits me more than those guys who are not in the room.
And then just think about who is the SEC commissioner? Is this Sankey?
Yeah.
Just think about, I mean, I don't ever see any FCS commissioners act this way, but just think about how highly Sankey thinks of the SEC. There is nothing on this planet that is better in his eyes than the SEC and the brand of football, basketball, whatever sport it is they play. Like, we need commissioners in the FCS like that have that type of fire about their conference where it's just like, the Big Sky is the best. I don't care what you say. We are the best, and we're gonna promote the best. I mean, it's just, I love his mindset.
Yeah. I think the best commissioner to do that is probably the Big Sky. If you look across FCS conferences, the CAA has done a pretty good job too. As much as people have hated on the CAA, their commissioner is pretty outspoken about that being a good conference. And
Yeah.
then maybe the SWAC, right, which doesn't get a lot of credit because they don't, they're kind of in their own bubble in the FCS. But outside of those three, you don't hear. Now, I will say the new Southland commissioner has done a really good job of promoting the conference. Chris Grant,
Yeah.
shout out to him. He's done a hell of a job. But the problem is the Southland hasn't backed it up necessarily on the field. But I
Yeah.
promise you, I know Chris really well. If Incarnate Word finds a way to win it all this year, y'all will be hearing a lot of Chris Grant. I promise that. I promise you that.
Okay. So, obviously you cover the whole subdivision. Where are you at with the competition level in the FCS? Where do you kind of see, and I know I'm kind of going off, you just made me think of something real quick. Where do you see the conferences being ranked in the FCS currently?
Oh God. In terms of conferences, it's funny. So our guy Timothy actually did like a conference ranking this all season where he used some power ranking. Timothy's a stats wizard, man. That dude,
Yeah.
listen, I'm smart, but that dude's different when it comes to ranking power rankings and stuff. But
Yeah.
I think there's a solid divide, and there's been for a while where you got the Missouri Valley Big Sky at 1 and 2. And I'll say
Yeah.
this, like I thought last year in terms of depth, like going into last year, I thought the Big Sky had more depth, but I'm not so sure anymore. Like some of those middle of
Yeah.
the road Big Sky programs have disappointed. And when you look at the Valley, they're getting a lot of good play out of those mid-tier teams. Like
Yeah.
Youngstown's had a little bit of a resurgence. You've seen Illinois State make a big run
Yeah.
last year.
North
And then
Dakota.
also,
Not
yeah,
last
North
year, but the year
Dakota,
before.
and then South Dakota, right? South Dakota
Yeah.
has had a remarkable turnaround, and even Southern Illinois was balling until they lost every player due to injury last year. It
Yeah.
seemed like, but I'll say this, and the thing that hurts the Big Sky is you can be deep, right? And I think the Big Sky is a super competitive conference, but eventually you're going to have to win the games that matter. Like you're
Yeah.
going to have to win a national championship, and it's been so long since we've seen that, right? What the last one's Eastern
2010.
Washington. Man, that's a long time ago. I was in middle
Yep.
school in 2010, so that's a long
Same.
time ago. And I'll say this: I think in terms of the conferences, the one that I'm really keeping an eye on, and I think you can make an argument that they're number three. And this is going to sound crazy. I think the UAC. Man, that conference is so
Amen.
good. Yes, I'm telling you, with Tarleton doing what they're doing, you have Abilene Christian with a little bit of a resurgence as well. Man, that conference is really, really good. Central
Where
Arkansas
were
is
all the
always
best running
competitive.
backs? Where were all the best running backs in the subdivision from last year?
UAC, even Southern. That's a good point. Southern Utah too has really had started to trend upwards in terms of what they're bringing. I think you can make an argument that they're three, especially with how watered down the CAA's become and how
Yep.
bad they've been performing in playoffs and out of conference play. I think a conference that I'm super interested to see, Sam. I think the Ivy League, right? Because they
Oh
didn't
yeah.
their seasons are only 10 games, right? So they're
Yep.
limited in out of conference opportunities. If they start winning in the playoffs, you're going to have to start making an argument on where they really rank in this subdivision. So I would say if you had to rank like my top five, Valley, Big Sky, UAC, and then I think you could put the Ivy League SoCon at 4 or 5. And it's order
SoCon, no
those however you
CAA.
want. I think the CAA right now has got a lot to prove for me. I would put them just behind the SoCon and Ivy. I
Yeah,
really
they had
I
a rough
just
year last year.
and then you also got to factor in they're losing Delaware this year,
Yep.
losing Richmond, who went to the Patriot. Those are two
Yep.
of the best teams. So you have
Hmm.
Villanova, William and Mary, who has disappointed over the last 2 years.
Yep.
Rhode Island has been up and down at times. Who's next? Like Stony Brook had one good year last year
Yeah.
after being winless. Can't put them really into that elite category yet.
Albany
They
had
just
a
don't.
decent year in 23.
Yeah, but now they've lost their coach and all their
Yeah.
players, and so I don't know what Albany's going to be. It's just Townsend's trending upwards, right? It just
Yeah.
happened to be they added all these programs to them, and it was not like it. So, like you look at some of their additions. Hampton's been good in the past. They've been historically bad
Yeah.
recently. A&T was winning Celebration Bowls and ranked top 15 in the FCS. They're historically bad. Campbell has not been able to capitalize on all the recruiting momentum they had. They've been bad. It's like every program they've added has just not been good and not been able to live up to the hype. They have brands, but they haven't had on-field performance. So I would drop the CAA. And I'll say this, I think the Big South OVC is knocking on the door behind them. 3 teams in the playoffs this past year. Tennessee State was
Yep.
really good. Tennessee Tech was on the bubble. UT
Yep.
Martin's been winning, beat the CAA in the playoffs as well. I mean, dominated New
Yep.
Hampshire. And then SEMO's been really good. So I would say the CAA's got a lot to figure out, man. They're under pressure this year to really prove that they're an elite conference at this level.
Yeah, and it sucks too because like the brand name of James Madison in the CAA just left, and now I feel like they left with all the CAA's credibility as well. Like they just
Yeah, them in Delaware. Those were the
yeah.
only 2 programs really kind of carrying the mantle for that conference. I will say, like the Southland, if you would ask me like 3 years ago when Southeastern Louisiana was winning playoff games,
Mm-hmm.
they could be in there. But I'll say this: they're trending in a very interesting direction, right? Because you have Incarnate Word, who has been the staple of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Southeastern Louisiana can win conference games; they just got to win out of conference. But Stephen F. Austin's right there, has been
Yeah.
playing really well, and also Lamar has been playing probably at the best that program's ever been playing. The
Mm-hmm.
Southland has a chance to make some waves, man. Could they? Because I think the Big South WC saw those programs have a lot of turnover. Could the Southland sneak a 3rd team into the playoffs? I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I love that you brought up the UAC because I've been banging. So it's kind of been twofold for me. Before the season, I was shitting on the UAC. I was like, man, this conference ain't nothing. They just put a bunch of teams in a conference and called it the UAC. But then after them getting 3 teams in the playoffs, 2 of them made it to the second round of the playoffs, and they were competitive the whole way. I was like, hey, man, I'll put my hands up and tell you when I was wrong. I was wrong about the UAC. They are a very formidable conference, and they're playing the best. They're running the ball the best in the country. So, I mean, you got to give them the respect.
Hey, they were probably, I think when you look back, was it Southern Utah? If they beat Idaho State and don't lose on that upset play, they get another
Yep.
team in the playoffs, and they kick
Yep.
one of the Big South WC teams out.
They might kick NAU out if they get in. You
I
know?
think I had my opinions on that pick, but yeah, probably
You don't. So you're saying you don't think NAU should have got in?
no.
Yeah, yeah. And it sucks too because then what they did against ACU just did
Made
not
it
look
so
good at
much
all.
worse. Same with like
Oh,
New Hampshire being seeded. Like I was like, I don't know about that one, and then they lose what 41-10.
yeah. Ugly look.
Not great.
Ugly look. Okay, I want to shift a little bit. So I got a quick topic. Mickey Joseph at Grambling, I'm sure you've already seen this, mentioned that he would like buyouts to be a piece of the transfer portal in Power 4 schools coming to get players. I think it is an amazing idea. I love it. Obviously, you'd have to have some guardrails around it and things like that. But where are you at on that? What do you think about that? Did you see the
Uh,
comment first off?
yeah, I made a comment
Okay.
about it. It got way more traction than I thought it would, with like P4 people saying no. Why would we do this? And I get it. It doesn't benefit them at all to have to pay buyouts. I'm with you. I think it's the next step in this evolution. But the problem
Yep.
is talking to some people about feasibility. We're probably about 5 years too soon with it, just
Why is that?
because you have to put the players under contract. Because how do you determine
Yeah.
the value of transfers? And also, too, in the minds of these colleges, their only argument is NIL is a 1-year deal. Sam, if
Yeah.
Montana comes to you like we're going to pay you an NIL this year, it's a 1-year deal. And so if you hit
Yeah.
the portal, what does Montana get back from that? Like, how do you put a value on a player, and how do you force the P4 to have that same evaluation on a player? It'd be really, really tough to monitor. And
It could be
also,
like
too,
25% of what we paid this player this past season.
The problem, though, is there's a lot of FCS programs not paying players that think they would deserve buyouts. And that would be
Yeah.
the issue, right? So I think the first step would be collectively bargaining for players. That's the next big step for them. And then the
Yeah.
next step is putting these players under contracts. And then the decision would be, do you put them all under 1-year contracts? Is it a year-to-year basis in college football, or do you give the players options like a 2+1 deal? It's a 2-year deal with a player option, and then it's a
Yeah.
3-year deal. You graduate, you're a grad guy, you're under no obligation to stay here. I think that would make sense, right? So if you do decide to transfer under contract, we have a buyout amount, just like in the professional, right? Teams
Yeah.
get comp picks. You get soccer buyouts, right, in the professional ranks of soccer. So I think things like that, the groundwork is there. The next step, though, is getting these players contracts. But I'm with you. Once we get to that point, absolutely got to have buyouts. The problem is, man, just right now, one, the NCAA is not in a position to do anything. They've just been throwing their hands up and letting everything fly. And so I
Which is
just
what the
really
problem is now.
Exactly. So I like that. It's just going to be hard for me to foresee the NCAA to enforce this because they're not enforcing
Yeah.
anything on tampering. They're not enforcing transfer portal windows. Like it's just a free for all. So that would be the one thing. And then two, the P4 has so much influence in the NCAA and in terms of the rules that are going to be passed. Why would they ever pass a rule where they're going to have to make more money? It's just not
Yeah.
going to happen right now. So until there's contracts introduced in college football, I think it's a way, way too far out idea. But I do think if contracts are ever introduced, that's going to be something the FCS and lower levels, and I think even G5 schools are going to have to fight for in that next
Yeah.
process.
I mean, because if you think about it, bro, with these G5 schools, with these FCS schools, it's a bogus system. Like, we are going to put all these resources into this player for the next 3 years. He's going to become an All-American. He's going to have a great season, and then he's gone. And I'm not mad at the player. I mean, I can't be mad at the player. It's just the system is messed up, man.
Yeah, and the problem is to go back and fix it. You would probably have to go back to like the early 2000s, late 90s. The NCAA saw this coming from a mile away and did
Yep.
nothing. And then what they tried to do, and this is the conversation not a lot of people have. The NCAA thought what would happen is they said, okay, we're going to take all the guardrails, NIL, free for all, transfer portal, free for all. It was like as a kid when you told your parents, hey, man, they caught you drinking the one time, and they're like, all right,
Yeah.
well, if you're gonna drink, you're gonna drink. Then we're gonna force feed you this to show you don't want to drink. That's
That
what
might
the
be an
NCAA
Alabama
thought.
thing. I never heard of that.
Yeah. So for sure, but no, man, but like that's what the NCAA tried to do, right? They're like, oh, don't want player movement and player freedom, have
Yeah.
all of it. Right.
Yeah.
And they thought that people were going to hate it. And, some people do. But the problem is, like, now that the toothpaste is out of the bottle, how do you get it back in? Like, what do you
Yeah.
do to enforce player movement? Because I'll be honest, like, if you remember when they first initially said you get one free transfer, then you had to sit out, people had a problem with
Yeah.
that. You're restricting player movement, this and that. Well, that rule seems really good right now. I wish we could go back
Yeah.
to that because at the end of the day, like, and I hate the comparison. I'll be honest. The coaches comparison, like, oh, coaches can move in this. Well, yeah, because coaches are employees and they have buyouts and contracts, and it's not the same comparison.
Yep.
And how often do you see a coach just dip in the middle of spring practice? Like, could you imagine if Bobby just didn't show up today to Montana spring ball because he was holding out for a new contract? People would lose their minds.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
so I
It's
hate that
crazy.
comparison. But yeah, the NCAA has messed this up, and they're at fault. And I'm with you. I can't be mad at the kids because they're trying to go get what they're worth, right? And I can't be mad at the coaches for being upset because I get it. And
Yeah.
I can't be mad at the fans because they're paying for tickets, they're funding these NIL collectives, they're doing all this stuff. And they're looking around like, man, what am I even donating to? Like, am I going to pay
Yeah.
this kid to only be here for a year? And I get it. It's not a smart investment. But at the same time, the real frustrations with the NCAA because they let this get out of hand and they tried to
Exactly.
do this, and it's been an ultimate failure. And they've even back to the 90s, man, they've been about 5 to 10 years too slow on every decision
Yep.
that they've
It's
ever
so
made.
it's so crazy because they waited so long till the lawyers and the congressmen, senators started to get involved and pass laws that tied the NCAA's hands, and then they didn't have time to put guardrails in place. They just said, "Okay, it's legal, whatever. Go ahead, do what you do." But that was because the politicians forced their hand. It wasn't because they actually wanted to do it. Like,
It just unbelievable, man. And just I just don't know what the next step is, right? Because the real next step to fixing college football is to get rid of the NCAA.
Yeah.
That would be the
But what
next step.
replaces them? What replaces them?
I don't know, a commissioner or a group of commissioners, like something like that, right? Where you don't have this governing, like, because the NCAA is just, to me, has made so many mistakes. I think we just need a whole new, fresh team. Like,
Yeah.
just tear it all down and let's restart from the foundation. Because at this point, I don't even know if removing one or two people from the positions that they're in are going to fix this.
Yeah. You got to tear the system down and build it back up from scratch.
Yeah.
So you mentioned players holding out. Obviously, Nio Iamaleava, the former Tennessee quarterback, made headwaves Friday on holding out, allegedly holding out, and then entering the transfer portal. It's Thursday, Friday. It was a Thursday, Friday situation. Holding out, didn't come to practice. He's wants more money. Where are you at with the Nio Iamaleava situation?
Oh man. Okay, it's such a weird balance, right? Because I'm not mad at the kid for wanting to get money, because
Yeah,
I'm assuming if he was asking for 4 million, he has to have an offer elsewhere, has to. And if he doesn't, God, they overplayed their hand here.
yeah, oh yeah,
Because I heard, because there's reports that he was already getting paid 2 million
yeah.
from Tennessee.
That's what I saw.
So, God, I mean, if you didn't have an offer for 4 million elsewhere, you have overplayed your hand significantly. And I think on one hand, man, like there's so many layers to this, right? On one hand, I think he's getting bad advice from his eight, because he had an agent. If you remember, Tennessee went to court when he committed to Tennessee to get his NIL early in high school. Like Tennessee went to the courts and fought for him to get some sort of NIL exemption or whatever over like a private
Wow.
jet or something. I forget what the exact story was. So you
Yeah,
have that level. So you know that he's surrounded by people who are pushing the money. His dad calls out the reporter on social media and calls him a derogatory term that looks really bad now. I
yeah,
don't know if this kid's surrounded by anybody who knows what they're doing, and that's one massive issue in this whole thing. The other one is, I think Tennessee had their hand forced, and I applaud Tennessee. At the same time, I'm not mad at Nico for making the decision. I applaud Tennessee for just saying, hey man, we don't think you're worth 4 million. The door is there. Go see if you can get
yeah.
your 4 million. Because the problem would have been, I know people always get mad, but the school's not in the wrong here, because I think if the school pays him, all you do is set the precedent for more players to now sit out and not play to get more money. They know you
Exactly.
can be had. So I think
Hmm.
Tennessee, as soon as the report came out that he was holding out for money and it was proven true, Tennessee had to cut ties.
They
Because
had to.
if you give in, not only do you set the precedent on your team, man, Sam, what would have happened next week? There'd be a
Oh
superstar on
yeah.
every single P4 team holding out for more money.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's a
And also,
dangerous
too,
system.
I do think there needs to be a system where NIL deals are public, like, because you hear
Yes.
all these
Yes.
you hear all these reported numbers, right? And let's keep it hypothetical in the FCS. If Land Larison's making 2 million at UC Davis, we need to know that, right? Because other running backs, so Targi Lampson needs to know that so he can negotiate with Southern Utah, and
Yep.
vice versa. The problem is we got all these hypothetical numbers, so you have kids and agents negotiating, thinking they have leverage when they say, this kid's making, you know, 3 million. What if that kid's only making 1.5? And so you're
What if he's only making
negotiating against
500?
your. Yeah, so I think making NIL deals public and setting the market appropriately would be the
Yeah.
first step in this, because who knows if Carson Beck's actually making $5 million at Miami? No
Yeah.
one knows that. That's all hearsay. And how much are these recruits really getting? Now, I will say I do know an FCS quarterback who transferred up and he's getting paid $2 million. You know, that good for him, but listen, that is a gross overpay for the kid who's
Yeah.
getting paid 2 million.
Yeah.
Just gonna put
It's
that out there.
crazy. It's crazy because what you're mentioning, I think, is the exact same thing that Kent Haslam, the AD at Montana, was saying when he sat down with the Grizz Fan Pod guys. Is what is the market? Like, it's impossible to know what the true market for these players is because most of these kids don't have Twitter. These kids got 100 followers on Twitter. A lot of these kids don't have big Instagrams, too. They got 2,000, 3,000 followers on Instagram. You can't really market that. Like, so what is
No.
the market? What is the market value for these guys? Nobody knows. So it's so
Well,
hard.
Well, the problem was NIL was supposed to be. So, I mean, Sam, you went to Montana. I've never been to Missoula, so I don't know what the local businesses are. But the deal was for you to be able to make an NIL deal with the local burger chain in Missoula, and
Yep.
you're making commercials for them. Tommy Malott partnering with a hamburger
Man,
joint in Bozeman.
I
Yeah,
put Huggins' quote on here. I will always return to the original premise of NIL. If you're marketable, you can get a McDonald's or Subway sponsorship. That's how it was supposed to be. I put that on there to bring up while
yeah.
we're talking about this topic. You're one of your co-hosts said that.
I'm with them, and that's what it was supposed to be, right? It wasn't supposed to be, Sam. You go to Bobby's office and say, "Hey, man, my high school friend who's at Washington is getting paid 500K. I'm gonna need 250."
Right.
But man, what do you mean 250? Like we're in the FCS. Like what are we supposed to? What are we doing here? And so
Yeah.
one, I think kids are talking to the wrong people, and then also two, these agents are like 50% of the issue because these agents don't get paid unless these kids are signing new NIL deals. And
Yeah.
so they're forcing these kids into the portal so they get paid and they're taking 30-40% off the top of those deals. And these kids are getting screwed. And then the other problem, you just mentioned it, a lot of these kids think they're worth more than they are and they think they're more marketable than they are. Because, and I think you've seen that with like national brands.
Yeah.
Who's had a national commercial? Arch Manning had like a Gatorade one.
Yeah.
Quinn Ewers had like a Arby's or Whataburger or something like that.
Travis
Shador
Hunter, the
Sanders,
Heisman winner.
Travis Hunter, Shador Sanders. You know what they are? That a lot of these guys aren't stars. And at the end of the day, like I know people love to say, man, I got 200,000-300,000 people on IG. It's not enough.
Yeah.
But we're talking millions of followers is what you have to be marketable to a national brand.
Yep.
And you are not Shador Sanders, and you are not Travis Hunter, and you are not Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning or whoever, name the player. And I think the biggest problem, I mean, Sam, you probably know this. I've talked to coaches where players are coming to some of these schools in the FCS asking for money that just makes no sense.
Yeah. It's wild.
So I think publicly announcing what these kids are making is the first step, and then two, getting these agents out of the game. These like everyone said, these kids need agents to protect them. The agents are the worst thing that's been introduced to this because there's no NFL standard, right? In the NFL, you can only sign with agents that are sponsored and certified.
By the
College football, man,
NFLPA.
yeah, college football, you got street agents who
Yep.
are just there to make money off these kids, man, and it's a despicable and nasty business out there.
And an NFL agent at max is taking 5%. These college agents are taking 20, 30, 40. Like, what are we doing? A kid makes 100,000, you take 20%, you're getting 20,000 for what?
Nothing. And these kids don't
Like,
know any better.
it's crazy. It's crazy. It's
And then
crazy.
on top of that, you got like parents and stuff taking off the top of it too. Like those kids
yeah.
aren't getting near what they should.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I fully agree. It all needs to be public. We need to be able to read the contracts, just like in the NFL. You say somebody's getting 28 million guaranteed. I think Mike Florio is always doing this. They'll post the contract and say, "Oh yeah, they just got 40 million guaranteed." Mike Florio will get the contract, go through the contract, and say, "Actually, it's more like 35 a year. With these incentives, it can be this." But like, we need to be able to see what the real numbers are so that these schools can operate in good faith.
Yeah, and then FCS players got to stop asking for P4 prices.
Yeah,
throw
yeah.
that
Let's
out
be
there.
real. Let's be real. If you're coming to FCS, you ain't getting more than like 100,000. Let's just tell it what it is.
Oh,
They
and
can't
that's
pay
if
that.
like you're a superstar, and their
Exactly.
superstars not getting 100K at the FCS
Exactly.
level.
Trust me, I know exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move away from the Nio Iamaleava situation. Sac State, Dr. Luke Wood. I don't got too many more questions for you. I'm gonna get you out here pretty soon. Sac State and Dr. Luke Wood. He did an AMA this week on Reddit where he's answering all the questions. He called the FCS JV football. Some people kind of agree with him and see where he's coming from. Some people think he's trying to disrespect the FCS. Where are you with Dr. Luke Wood, Sac State going to FBS and all that whole debacle?
I get what he's saying, right? I want to start with that. I just don't like the pop shots. And so that's why I took one back on social media and it kind of got trending there. But
Yeah.
I don't understand how you can call something JV when you have never been competitive at JV. Like
Colton
and
Nuanez at Skyline said the exact same thing.
and listen, they were really good there, right? They won a handful of Big Sky championships, but it never translated to any postseason success.
Yep.
And you were just 3-9. You made all these splash hires, and listen, Brendan Marion's recruiting his what off, man. Like
Oh
they're
yeah,
doing a hell of a job building a roster, and I kind of wish they would stay for a year to see if that works at the FCS level because I think they are going to be pretty good.
I think
But
so.
calling it JV, man, like where do you think you're going? Like G5 isn't JV.
Right.
What are you competing for? And you're also going to go independent, thinking you're getting all this TV money, where bro, you're not Notre Dame. Like who independent? Like what was Liberty's independent TV deal? Nothing. And you
Oh,
get no conference payout. You get no CFP money. You get no access to the CFP because they're not putting you in because the only independent program that's going to get access is Notre Dame. And
yep.
you have no bowl tie-ins. You have no real rivalries. Now you're going to have to pay to play UC Davis because UC Davis ain't going to play you for free because now you're an FBS school. And you
Yep.
got to pay all these people to come play you. At the end of the day, I don't think the TV deal is going to support that. And I'll say this: I think there's a lot of people hating, right? Because there always is, right?
Mhm.
That they don't like that Sac State's leaving.
Yep.
I'm not hating. I hope they're successful. I hope they go and kill it independent. I would love to see the program be good, but for me, there's just so many unanswered questions, right? And I really do think the president and AD have made all these promises, right, Sam, where they're just like, we're going to go FBS. We're going to get that invite. And I think when the invite didn't come, they panicked. And they said, okay, well, the invite didn't come. We're going to have to kick the door in. We're going independent. Sam, how long do you think they can fund being independent?
I don't know, man.
1, 2, 3 years? What happens if the Mountain West doesn't invite them? Because you're not going to the Big 12, like you said. That's not happening.
No.
Like it's not you're not going to the Big 12. The
But
CUSA doesn't want to go that far west. So you have the Mountain West and you have what the Pac-2.
yeah,
What
it's
you're
it's
gonna go
being
join?
rebuilt. It's more than two now, but yeah,
Not great. I mean, it's a G5 conference. So I mean,
yeah.
at the end of the day, yeah, maybe the TV money's a little bit better, but I don't see the intrigue. Like I don't see why you had to be so desperate, right? Why wouldn't you just wait for a better opportunity to make the jump?
Right.
And and you mentioned like something about I kind of was listening to his interview with one of the local radio stations. He was like, "When's the last time you saw Sac State on the front page of ESPN?" It was like, "You're not on the front page of ESPN because you're good. You made the jump, and it was a crazy move that put you on the front page of
Right.
ESPN. You're going to make the jump, and ESPN is never going to talk about you again."
A move that you talked about 3 months ago, mind you.
Yeah, like that's why you were on the front page of ESPN. It's not because you're FBS now. It's because you were the only program crazy enough to go independent.
Yeah.
Why
Well, you
would
know
you
what's
do
gonna be
that?
funny? You know what's gonna be funny is the first time they play a JV squad and that JV squad beats them. They are gonna
Yeah,
get
because they're gonna
flag
because
online.
oh, I hope they go out there and pay Montana State $400,000 to come beat them in Hornet Stadium. That would be, and I think you see that, right? Because I don't think the difference between FBS and FCS or G5 and FCS is that much.
It's
Because
not.
who are you? Because what's going to happen is they're going to pay the same Big Sky programs that they were just playing, but they're going to come $300,000 out of their own pocket to play them.
Yep. Yep.
Make it make
Yeah, because
sense.
that's what I'm thinking of is like, who are you scheduling? Who is like who are they scheduling to play? I mean, that's where I see the problem coming in is like finding a 11, 12 game schedule to be able to put together. How are you
And
gonna put
he talked about a scheduling alliance. He was like Notre Dame has a scheduling alliance. I was like, yeah, because it's Notre Dame.
yeah, everybody
You're
wants to play
Sac
Notre Dame.
State. And he like I guess they're betting on the Pac-12 or the Mountain West wanting to have like a scheduling alliance. They
Yeah.
didn't want you in their conference. Why would they schedule you for a game? Why would they schedule us? Why would they have a scheduling alliance that they didn't even want you in their conference?
Yeah.
There's
It's a
just so
great
many
point.
unanswered questions. I don't get it. And also too, if you would have just waited a year, maybe you get an invite in 2026. Like, what is the rush
Yeah.
here? Like, what are you trying to capitalize on?
Also, looking for a bid the year after you went 3-9, I think is a terrible play. I mean, it just optically it doesn't look great. You guys weren't good.
Yeah.
Now you want the Pac-12 to come grab you or the Mountain West. Like, why would we grab you? You guys are not an attractive sight right now.
Well, and I get the point of the media market, right? Because Sacramento is a massive television market.
Yeah.
But if it was so big, why hasn't anyone wanted you?
Yeah.
What's been the holdup? And
Yeah.
why do people not want you now? The Mountain West had every opportunity to add Sac State. They took everybody but they went and got UC Davis
Yeah.
before they got Sac State for everything but football. They went and
Yeah.
got your rival for everything but football.
Yeah.
And there was a hush-hush deal that UC Davis was going to be the next school they added. So why do you think they would add you?
Seems like they're doing everything but adding you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I don't necessarily understand. And then also the funnier part, it goes back to our conversation earlier. What happens if there is a G5 FCS merger and you just did all this woofing about JV football and forcing your way up and you lose all this money and now you're right back in the big sky like 4 or 5 years later? That would be the ultimate karma.
Yeah. See, yeah. I mean, my thing is I don't care that they were very brash about wanting to go FBS. I don't care about all that. I just feel like I don't know. I don't think we needed him to say what he said early January. I don't think we've needed him to say all the things that he said leading up to it. Like, you could have made an announcement. Yeah, we're planning on making an announcement the next couple of weeks that we're going to be going to FBS. That's all it had to be. Like, I feel like he's been so loud. It kind of has created people who want to see him fail and want to see them not do good. And he's kind of shit on people and institutions along the way. So it's like, I don't know. He kind of put himself in a bad position.
There was that report. I don't know how valid it was that they said that his, I guess, boldness about their move is one of the reasons why while other conferences have been hesitant to add them, which is very, very interesting. And I wouldn't put it past. Listen, people in this business are super petty, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's the case. And the funnier thing is going to be what happens if the Mountain West adds somebody else before Sac State. What do you do? Like, what's the next move if you're Sac State? What if Tarleton goes to the CUSA or North Dakota State or one of the Montanas gets that invite or UC Davis gets that invite? What do you do then? Just independent. And then also, too, how do you recruit? They're recruiting at a very high level. But, Sam, you went to Montana to play for championships at the highest level. Would you have committed to Montana if they were FBS independent with no bowl tie-ins, no conference championships? Like, you're just out there playing to play, man. We having fun.
I'm not going to lie, man. I only had one offer, so I probably would have. But I get what you're trying to say.
If another school called you and said, hey, you play for Natties, that one might have been a little bit more intriguing.
For sure. Most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, you want to play where football matters, and I feel like Sac State has put themselves in a position where you very recently won 3 straight Big Sky championships. Now you're playing for the Cheetos Bowl in December.
Maybe.
Like, nobody cares about that bowl. Nobody cares about the bowls. Everybody wants to watch the college football playoff, or even more than the bowls, the FCS playoffs, because it matters. You are playing for something. I mean,
and bowl games, there's been a lot of talk about cutting some of the bowls because there's too many, and with all those bowl tie-ins, man, you better hope that there's not enough teams bowl eligible or that could be tied in because you might not get a bowl invite, even at 6-6.
I mean, let's be real, Zach. You have to be 6-6, 500 to make an FBS bowl. What kind of system? Like, that's like a participation trophy. Like, that is not a hard barrier of entry to get into a bowl game. That is ridiculous.
It might be hard for a team that was 3-9 last year, though. I will say that might be a pretty high bar to go 6-6.
Well, that was all I have for you today, bro. I thoroughly have appreciated having you on my channel, man. Like, I appreciate you for coming on. I hope this isn't your last time coming on the channel. I truly, truly appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to say before we get off here, man?
Nah, man. Hey, keep killing it, man. I think you're probably one of the fastest growing, I guess, platforms in this space, man. So keep killing it, man. If there's anything that we can do or anyone in the space can do, man, just let us know, man. And anytime you want me on, you got my contact info, man. Reach out and be glad to come over here and chop it up with you.
For sure, man. I appreciate you. Well, this is Zach Mckinnell with the FCS Blue Bloods, aka FCS Football. So let me ask you this. You said Blue Bloods is the YouTube, Football Central is like the
website.
What am I trying to say? The website, yeah. What do people call it? Is it Zach Mckinnell? Is it FCS Football Central? Is it Blue Bloods? Or do you just answer to them all?
I answer to them all, man. We got the Blue Bloods podcast and YouTube channel, and then FCS Football Central on SI. I've kind of just got used to answering to either my name, Blue, or I'll usually just say the Blue Bloods is like the official podcast of FCS Football Central on SI. But whatever, man. It don't matter to me. As long as people are tuning in and supporting, I could care less what they say.
Yeah. For sure. Well, this is Zach Mckinnell with FCS Football Central. Appreciate you guys for tapping in. I'll catch you guys later.